and welcome to the next session of food preparation and nutrition cooking sessions at home. So today we're going to be making a pizza. Just talk you through some of the ingredients and then we'll get on with making it. So in my bowl here I've got 200 grams of plain flour, and to my bowl I'm going to add 7 grams, which is 1 teaspoon, teaspoon's the small one, of dried yeast. And I'm also going to add again 1 teaspoon of sugar. Okay, I'm going to leave that for now while I talk you through some of the other ingredients and the toppings. So, as well as the flour that we've got in here, we need a small amount of flour for dusting the surface and also for dusting our baking sheet. So the baking sheet over here is what we're going to cook the pizza on, and we're going to lightly dust it so that the dough doesn't stick while it's in the oven. Put those to one side. We're then going to top our pizza with passata, but if you can't get passata, there's a couple of choices. So this is passata, okay? If you've got tomato puree, you'll notice it's a double concentrate. So what you need to do is water this down. My suggestion is 1 tablespoon of tomato puree to 2 tablespoons of cold water. Mix that together and it can make it much runnier, it makes it a much better flavour. Or alternatively, you could use some tinned tomato, okay? And what I would suggest you do is try not to get any of the large lumps of tomato, but get more of the sauce and spread that around your pizza. Okay, so those are the tomato toppings. And then next we've got the cheese that goes on top. So you could use a hard block of cheese. I would recommend a mild cheddar so that the flavour's not too overpowering. Or you could use the mozzarella. I just want to show you the mozzarella. So it comes in a plastic packet and there's some liquid in the packet as well. So what you need to do with the packet is just cut the packet open, and when you tip it out you'll notice that the liquid comes out also. Okay, and then with the mozzarella you're just going to rip it apart, and I'll show you how to do the mozzarella later. Okay, but the mozzarella typically comes in a ball. Okay, so that's the cheese part, and then we want to think about the toppings that are going to go on top of the pizza. So ideally you want to add a lean protein. Here I've got some tuna. You could maybe use some chicken pieces if you liked. The chicken should already be cooked. And then think about some vegetable toppings. So I've got out some peppers, which I've sliced up already, and a tomato. You could use sweet corn, you could use pineapple as a fruit topping. Lots of different vegetables that could go on top of a pizza. And finally I've got some Italian herbs, okay? And I will just sprinkle those over the top. So let's get back to actually making our dough. So we've got in here, recap, the flour, the sugar and the yeast. Okay, so to recap, in our bowl we've got 200 grams of plain flour, 7 grams or a teaspoon of yeast, and also a teaspoon of sugar. So into this I'm going to add 125 millilitres of water. Okay, and I'm just going to start off by stirring this. Now I'm going to choose to stir it with a knife. The reason for that is actually that the dough won't stick as much to the knife. I'm not putting my hands in to start off with because it would be really sticky and it would just stick all over me. So just showing you this, it's starting to come together. Okay, and at this point I'm going to scrape all the dough off my knife, put that to one side and actually turn it out onto the surface. I'm not going to flour my surface at this point because I want to start kneading it together. If there's any bits of dough stuck in your bowl, just spend a couple of seconds just getting all those bits out. Okay, and now I can put my bowl to one side. So I'm going to start off by bringing my dough together, and I'm trying to keep a flat hand. So when I'm folding it over, I'm not getting my fingers, I'm not kind of squishing it in between my fingers, so I'm keeping a nice flat hand. Now my dough feels a little bit sticky, so I'm just going to add a little bit of flour, and I'm starting the process of kneading. So when we're kneading our dough, we are actually folding it over and then pushing it out with the heel of our hand. Folding it over again, pushing it out. And we need to keep turning our dough so we can push it out twice and then turn it at 90 degrees. And what we're doing here is we're actually starting to activate the yeast that is in the dough and to form the air bubbles. And we're going to knead the dough for about 5 minutes. So after you've kneaded your dough together for about 5 minutes, you should find it's got a nice smooth texture, should be no creases. I've lightly floured my baking tray ready, and I'm now going to divide my dough into two. So I'm going to make 2 smaller pizzas, and this one piece I'm just going to put to one side. Now, some people choose to roll their dough out. I quite like to just manipulate the dough in my hands to start off with to get me that nice round shape, and then I'm going to use my rolling pin. Before I use my rolling pin, I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the top of my dough and just turn it over so that when I start rolling, it doesn't it doesn't stick it all to the base, okay? So I'm going to roll, lift and turn. The purpose of the lifting and the turning is to make sure that the dough isn't sticking to your work surface. And if you find that your dough is starting to get a little bit sticky, then you can just take some more flour and add a little bit more flour to either the work surface, or it might be that you have a problem in that your dough is starting to stick to your rolling pin, in which case you could actually, I'll just show you, lightly dust your rolling pin down. Now, although pizzas typically come in a circular shape, they don't have to be circular. And I would suggest that you don't want to worry too much about the shape of your dough, think more about the thickness. So at this point, you're making a decision whether you like a thin and crispy pizza or whether you prefer a thicker dough. And so now I've got this nice and thin, and I'm going to lay it onto my baking tray, ready for my toppings. Okay, so now I'm going to start to top my pizza. So I've got some of my passata from earlier, a few spoonfuls to start off with. You can always add more, but it's more difficult to take it away. I'm just going to use the back of my spoon to spread it around. Now with your pizza, you don't want to spread your passata right up to the edge. You want to think about leaving a small edge so that there is a crust. And now we're ready for the mozzarella, which I've ripped up already, and now I'm going to dot it around. Okay, so as you can see, I've dotted my mozzarella around my pizza topping. You don't need to cover all of it because it will melt in the oven and it will start to move around. So I'm going to be adding some frozen peas. You can add them straight from the freezer. And I'm going to be adding some tuna. Not too much in any one area. Make sure you spread it around. And then finally, I'm just going to be adding some red peppers. Okay, so I'm going to preheat my oven and then I'm going to put my pizza into my oven, and it's going to take 12 to 15 minutes. Okay, so 10 to 15 minutes after they've been in the oven. Now, my advice to you is don't just set a timer and leave them. Go and check on them because otherwise they could burn. So I'm really happy with the colour of this. So my dough has got a nice golden brown colour. My cheese has melted and it's spread all the way over. As you can see on this pizza here, we did just one with sweet corn. Okay. Any questions, please ask me. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you again next time.